welcome back. I kind of want to yap from a place of frustration, confidence, and wisdom, right? And it's going to be a bit of a weird one because I don't have a structure to this. I'm literally just yapping from the heart and just kind of letting go of some of my early perceived ideas of what I think I should have been doing at a very young age, right? I think we have all been lied to. We have all been lied to. We are frustrated because we have all been lied to. We were told from a very young age the goal is to get really good grades, go to university, acquire a degree, start in that career using the degree, and progress in that career. Sometimes we've even been told the goal is to find a good company and to never leave, to just simply progress in that company. By progressing, you're obviously going to make more money, and by doing so, you will find yourself in a position where you're stable enough to start a family, get married, have kids, buy a home. Not necessarily all in that order, but starting a family usually means having a place to live, being with somebody, and making babies. And the older I get and the more experienced I become, I kind of realize that was an absolute lie. There's a lot of missing components in that structured setup, that structured path, that we have not been told about. And often it leads us to feeling incredibly unfulfilled, feeling miserable in life. And it's perhaps because you haven't fed your creativity, you haven't fed your curiosity in the process of living life, right? In the process of finding stability. I think my biggest frustration lies with the fact that, I'll use myself as an example, right? I was never really the smartest student, but when I applied myself, I would get the grades. I didn't necessarily care about school, but I knew that there was massive importance tied to doing well and getting the grades to be able to apply for a course or a degree. So I kind of realized the importance of that towards the end of secondary school. And thankfully, I managed to get grades good enough for me to kind of do anything that I wanted. But I ended up picking nursing because at the core of myself was care and empathy. I now know that that care and empathy doesn't necessarily apply to the way nursing is. I think the reason why I picked nursing, however, was because caring is at the very core of what that profession requires. In theory. In practice, not so much. And I'm sure that a few of us will have had run-ins with certain nurses that have made us realize that that really is not the case, okay? You really do not have to care to become a nurse or to progress in nursing, to do well in the career. Care is no longer kind of at the center of it. So you might be wondering, yes, but you can care for people in many different professions. Yes, but I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't made aware of this at the time. And you might be wondering, why care? Why was that the most important aspect of picking what you wanted to do for a living? And truthfully, I think that anyone who has made me shift, who has moved me beyond my will, has been a caring person. And I've always kind of wanted to have that impact on other people, because if you experience what I'm talking about, you understand how magnetic that kind of person is, and the effect that they have on others is, I'm trying to find a way to articulate myself. The effect that that kind of person will have on you you almost have like an outer body experience of someone who really cares at the center of them, as that being their very principle, their number one principle. But anyways, I've always kind of wanted to have that effect on people, and I know that I've had that effect on people because I've had feedback on it. People have interacted with me and I've left them, they've thought about me for days after the interaction. Sometimes they've even had to come back to give me the feedback to let me know that they really appreciate X, Y, and Z. Letters, handwritten notes, you know, really amazing things that kind of reinforce why I decided that I wanted to put care at the very center of anything that I did. And it's not unique to myself. I'm sure a lot of people will have had feedback, letters, cards. It's very common for people to be grateful. But I don't think it's very common for people to express having experienced a life-changing effect from somebody, or gratitude about being a fresh breath of air in a perhaps very depressing system. But anyways, that's a whole nother topic for a different video. We have been lied to, and the path that has been sort of set up for us includes many hurdles that we have to jump over. Hurdle 1 being getting good grades. Hurdle 2, getting into the university of your choosing. Hurdle 3, passing and starting a career. Hurdle 4, progressing in that career. Now, a lot of us don't even make it past hurdle 1 because nowadays nobody reads. Nobody is clever enough to do really well in their studies, right? I think in England we have recently hit record lows in literacy. So hurdle 1, which is to get good grades, a lot of us are really struggling to even achieve that. So many of us still go to university, but we struggle to start a career using the degree that we've achieved, right? That we studied so hard for. So you may have made it past 2 hurdles, but then hurdle 3, which is starting your career, is you seem to catch your foot on the hurdle and you've just kind of fallen flat on your face. And it isn't your fault. Unfortunately, it isn't your fault. But you don't have to decide that that's where it ends. Most of us will feel very unfulfilled because in the process of jumping over those hurdles, we forgot to feed creativity and we forgot to feed curiosity, right? You may have jumped through all of those hurdles, but failing to feed your creativity and curiosity will still leave you doing the best job, getting to the best position in your field, and still feeling incomplete. And I think when I think about the most successful people, they have kind of had to stray off path and become entrepreneurs, right? They have looked at ways to go into work less. They have looked at ways to spend more time with their families, and have found that the way to do it is to stray off path and to start something from scratch, to use the skills that they have acquired in the process of jumping over those hurdles to solve a problem for somebody, or to perhaps even mentor somebody. And the connections that they build in doing that allows them to make more money to the point where they don't have to work full time, or create a connection with somebody who can lead them to having the right connections that will mean they can start a new business. And starting that new business will mean they have extra time to feed their creativity, to learn something new, that curiosity that they've been itching to feed. It can be fed through straying away from that structured path. So I think I first had this epiphany when I was in my early 20s. I had just sort of progressed onto the next band in nursing and decided I wanted to now look at what's next. And I looked at the people in charge, my managers, both like just managerial and clinical. And I did not want to become any of them. I did not care for what they were doing on a daily basis. I did not care for the stress that came with the job. It did not speak to me in any way, right? And that was when I knew that I was in trouble, because I was not willing to be lost for the next 40, 50 years. And I knew I had to kind of break free and get out. And it's not to suggest that the people who are doing those jobs are bad people. I was quite lucky in that I had amazing managers, amazing leads. And oftentimes I think they saw my abilities before I saw it myself. And when you're around people like that, they give you the push that you need in a very healthy way, because they make you realize that you don't have to wait to feel that you are deserving before you can act on doing what's on your mind, right? I think when you have really good management and you have really good leadership, that kind of guidance is second to none, really. It is second to none. So it's not to try and bash anyone, to suggest that they were bad people or that they weren't doing their job well or anything. They were, but I could still see the effects it was having on them, and I didn't care for the job enough to want to experience something similar. So I started spiraling a little, because I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, but I still didn't feel whole. I didn't feel complete. I felt a bit lost. And I remember expressing this to my family at the time, and I think the only person that really understood what I was experiencing, what I was going through, was my uncle. And I have a very good relationship with my uncle. I have a really good relationship with my loved ones, my friends. Although I don't have many people that I would comfortably call my friends, I don't really have secrets. I think I'm an open book with most people. So having a really good relationship with my uncle just comes with being an open book and not having any secrets. But anyways, I explained that to him, to explain what was going on with me in my mind and where I was at. And he just kind of smiled at me and looked at me and said, you're having the midlife crisis but early, right? You're having the midlife crisis, but it's early. And I was in my early 20s at that time. And he just kind of looked at me and told me that what I'm experiencing right now is actually a blessing in disguise, because to know that you are not fulfilled in doing what you're currently doing means that, and I didn't have any children, I didn't have a mortgage, I was single. He said that you're in a position now where you can shift and do anything that you want. You can experiment and do anything that you want. And it's not too late because you've had it early. And I remember one of his mates saying a very similar thing to myself, saying a very similar thing to me, and saying that you're miles ahead of the rest, blessing. Don't worry. Don't worry. So I knew that it's time for me to do whatever the heck I want. I needed to take my time this time. I needed to be willing to try and try and try and try and try and try until I failed. I needed to know that eventually I had to stop listening to guidance from people who lived very ordinary lives, because I had followed that path and realized it was not for me. So I cannot continue to take advice from people who have followed that same path. I needed to get mentorship from somebody who strayed, preferably strayed early, strayed successfully. And so I did. And so I did. I quit the full-time nursing job. I knew that I still enjoyed the clinical portions of things, so I started working the clinics as and when I wanted to. Because remember, I don't have any major responsibilities, no partner, no children, no bills that I couldn't take care of while being free. And started a business, started feeding creativity. I had to start therapy, and I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my coping skills. I learned a lot about how I felt and viewed myself. And these are all skills, even though at the time I didn't necessarily know I was doing it, they were kind of setting me up to be an immense force, right? They were setting me up to have the confidence to do whatever the heck I wanted, because none of this really matters. Reality is real, but there are several paths that you can take, and you can start over if you want to. So I think I've rambled on enough, but the message is you need to do whatever the heck it is that you want to do. Otherwise, you will not reach optimal fulfillment. You have been lied to, and you will be continued to lie to, because not necessarily intentionally, but the life you want, the way you wish to live, hasn't been practiced by the average person. So they cannot give you the guidance that you need, right? Eventually, you have to stop listening to them. You can choose to do so now, or you can follow their path, waste many decades, and then decide you no longer want to listen to those average people. Nobody shares your vision, so it's technically your job to execute what you can see. I hope that this speaks to a few people. If it resonates, please leave a comment. I'm so curious to hear about people's stories. I'm always very keen to read about people and their journeys. So please leave a comment.